right, here we go. The first lecture on YouTube. Okay, let's do it. So for this one, we're going to be using the notes that you got on March 3rd. They look like this. I put them on the website. I moved them all the way to the top so that they were easy to find. I'll put the is this how YouTubers say it? I'll put the link in the bio so you can find them easy. All right, so Introduction to Thermochemistry. And I guess what we'll do is we'll go over these definitions before we start anything. So thermochemistry, and I'm reading this from the textbook, which is where I hoped you would look for them. All right, thermochemistry, the study of energy changes that occur during chemical reactions and changes in state. Okay. So, law of conservation of energy. We've talked about other laws of conservation, right? Law of conservation of mass. What does that mean? It means nothing can disappear, nothing can come out of nowhere. Hey, where'd that energy go? Can't happen. Hey, where did that energy come from? Also can't happen. And temperature, I feel like we've talked about quite a bit. That is a measure of the kinetic energy of particles in matter. Temperature determines the direction of heat transfer. So we've definitely talked about it being the average kinetic energy of the particles in matter. Determines the direction of heat transfer. So that would be right here, right? We had this as a do now. It's going from high to low. So when you touch something and it feels cold, it's not that cold is flowing into your hand, it's that the heat, right, is going to where something is cold. Heat flows from high to low. Okay. Cold doesn't exist, which when I heard that, I was like, whoa, that's crazy. So high to low. All right, so let's go back to this up here. So we should remember from the beginning of the year, and from what I remember, it seems like you guys had a really good handle on this. You understand that the particle diagrams look like this, right? Solid, they're closely packed together. Oh my gosh. All right, solids are closely packed together. Liquids are kind of like, ooh, wavy, a little all over the place. And then gas, they're just everywhere, going crazy, really far apart. And I wanted you to associate the temperature with it, right? So this is relative, right? A solid is going to be colder than a liquid, which is going to be warmer than a gas, right? So if you think about taking an ice cube, and maybe I'll make a video of this too. You have a pan, you put it on the stove, and you have an ice cube, right? Turn the heat on. As you're adding heat to the ice cube, what's going to happen? It's going to melt, right? So it turns into a liquid, right? And you keep heating it, it's going to start, quote unquote, smoking, right? That's not smoke, it's steam. It's turning into a gas. So keep thinking about that when we're talking about phase changes and everything, right? Think about putting an ice cube in a hot pan. All right, so that would be... I'm not going to draw the particle diagrams, right? Just real quick, sloppy. And these are just all over the place, going crazy. All right, if you were there that day at the beginning of the year, we did this. We all stood up, right? We packed really close into the back of the room. Then water, liquid, we kind of started moving around. And then gas, we were all spread out around the room. Okay, next part. Oh, that was your PSATs. I hope they went well. We just went over the vocabulary. This we did. Okay. When someone says you're letting the cold in, right? That's wrong. The heat is actually leaving. Okay. So, we'll go over this part now. All right. Melting. All right. We talked about that. It would be a solid to a liquid, right? We were talking about having an ice cube, whether you're holding it in your mouth, you're holding it in your hand, you're putting it in a pan, whatever. It's going from a solid to a liquid. Freezing, right? You put some water in an ice cube tray, you put it in the freezer. That's a liquid to a solid. Vaporizing, which is also what we know as boiling, right? It's vaporizing, turning into a vapor. Condensing is just the opposite of that, right? So the steam that fogs up on your mirror during a shower, what's happening there is that the gas particles of water, right? You have steam in your shower, it's nice and hot, and then once it cools down, because the mirror is colder, right? Once the water is a gas, once it gets onto the mirror, it turns back into a liquid. So that's condensation, right? You may also know that from when you have a glass of water, nice ice water in the summer, and it gets wet on the outside. It's not the water leaking through the cup. It's the water that's in the air touching your glass, getting cold enough to turn back into a liquid. Sublimating is, if you remember the block of dry ice from the chemistry demonstration show, it looks like a big giant ice cube, and it looks like it's smoking. Again, that's not smoke, it is gas, right? So it's going right from the solid state right to a gas. And deposition, deposing, that's the one that's kind of the weirdest to visualize or kind of think about, because you're not, you don't really see it that often. It's basically the same as condensation, but instead of going to a liquid, you're going right to a solid. So when you see in the wintertime some frost on the grass, right, it looks like there's little tiny icicles on the grass or anywhere. That's deposition. Okay, next part. So we're going to fill those in, going from a solid to a liquid, right? So we're taking an ice cube and we are melting it, right? That's going to liquid. Going from a liquid to a gas, you have boiling. And then if you're going straight from a solid right to a gas, right, we were talking about the block of dry ice, smoking, quote unquote, turning into a gas. That is called sublimation. Then on the flip side, when you're going the other way, going from a gas to a liquid, right, the steam in your shower making little water droplets on your mirror, that is condensation. Actually, I'm just going to go back to the slide. Where did the slide go? Oh, there it is. All right. And when you're going from a liquid, right, you take the ice tray, you put some water in it, you put it in the freezer, that is freezing. And then we just talked about deposition, also the kind of weird one that you're not really familiar with. Okay. Now, let's go here. So I picked out all these words so that it would be familiar to you, or try to think about, different words that could remind you what those things mean. So endoscope, going into the body, right, for a surgery. Endogamy is you're staying within your social group, right? You're staying inside the group. Endoskeleton is like us, right? Our skeletons are on the inside of our bodies. And I put endoscope twice. I just realized that. Oops. I guess I was having a little bit of a hard time finding endo words. All right. Exo, right? Exorcism. You're trying to get an evil spirit out of the body, or a house or something, right? Exoskeleton, right? Their skeletons on the outside, like a crab or something, lobster. Exothalamus. I thought that was funny. The medical term for bulging or protruding eyeballs. Exo, right? It's coming out of your head, the eyeball. And exit. Going out or leaving a place. I'm pretty sure we're all good with the word exit. So